Formula Access. Today we got a special one for you, straight from the USA. Allie Stone, Director of Digital Marketing for the Circuit of the Americas. You guys, it's like a kindred soul to me. Digital marketing. We have a family marketing agency. This podcast is all about marketing. There's perfect synergy in the conversation here. Allie is newer to the sport. However, she's become a master of her craft. She not only deals with Formula One, but all of the other series that attend the track. We talk all things marketing, all things fan experience, all things customer experience, and what an unbelievable fan experience that occurs at Circuit of the Americas. You guys, I just attended that race, and finally 3 weeks later to be able to sit down and talk to somebody that is on the inside of this event, it is just a testament to how much this track cares about your experience as a fan. Anyone in the USA, anyone worldwide that wants to attend a race that is perfectly catered and suited to the loyal fan, here you go. Enjoy my conversation with Allie. Formula Access, welcome. I told you I'd be bringing the people of motorsports, and I always tell you guys that, but we keep delivering. People keep opening their doors. People keep allowing us into their lives. And today we have a really special guest from a recent race, which is on the back screen here. We have Allie Stone. She is with the Circuit of the Americas. She is the digital marketing manager for the track. This is a role that holds true to my heart because we have a marketing company in our family. And when I see these roles, I speak the language, I understand its value and its impact. And Allie, we're so excited for you to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
We are too. Austin was the first Formula One race that I've ever gone to. I've been a fan of the sport for 20 years, and I got a ticket to Indianapolis in 2007 when they had the huge tire debacle, and for whatever scheduling conflict arose from that, I couldn't go with my wife, and then with technology, it's like, well, I have this experience, why would I go to the track? And I went, and now I get it. And so we did the general admin route. I got a lot of advice from a lot of people around the paddock about where to go and where to sit, and I was like, yeah, I just want to go find the spot, and then next year I'm going to have the experience. And so we went around, an amazing venue, amazing people. You run the most well-organized machine for 500,000 people, most attended event annually for the sport, I guess 2 years running now. And astonished by organization. We're entrepreneurs, so organization and the way that you do things as a business matters a lot. Mm-hmm. And to go and see something that well run and organized is unbelievable. So kudos.
Thank you. That was quite an intro. Yeah, I think we have a really solid group of people who work here. Some people have been here for 10 plus years from the first race, and that knowledge is, you can't pay for something like that. So I think we've found a team of people who've really connected and found the best way to put on such a large event. It's quite daunting when you're planning for it a year in advance, but the payoff is unbelievable once the race is finished and all the fans have had a great time.
And FYI, I have been trying to get people from the track and the venue on the show. I guess we're 6 weeks old now, 7 weeks old at this point. And everyone, very nice and responsive, completely refused to they're like, not yet. We're too busy. And I'm like, really? This is a machine. It should be working. But everybody was working diligently. And then to kind of go and, we did the shuttle. We parked on Friday and Saturday, in one of the fields nearby and took a shuttle. But we did the actual shuttle service on Sunday. And, I was like, oh, I don't know what this is going to be like. But the lines move.
Mhm.
They're long, but you don't stop moving. And there's water and beer and everything that you need as a fan. Like at no point in time was I ever like, I should have paid $1,000 for parking. And,
So it hasn't always been that way. We've learned a lot over the years, and especially as the event just gets larger and larger. But we seriously take our fans' feedback into consideration. So after each event, even if it's something small like a concert or bike night or any other thing that's going around the track, we send out a survey, and we have plenty of meetings where we talk about what the fans want and what was lacking. And I think that's what kind of sets us apart, is the fact that we really want the fans to have the best experience. Like, that is our end goal. We want you to come, have a great time, and then we want you to be eager to come back again. And I think we've really stepped up our customer service game, and really, like I said, just listen to the fans' feedback, because at the end of the day, those are the people who we want to make the most happy.
for anyone that has never attended this event, I'm I am self-admittedly insane about customer experience. I run a tech company, so customer experience is everything, and,
Mhm.
and journey is everything. So I'm a little crazy when it comes to this stuff. The app has a map on it that shows your current location and like guides you with almost like Google directions
Mhm.
level experience. It just, I don't know. I was actually really impressed by the whole experience, because if anyone has to understand that 500,000 people over the course of 3 days in a racetrack venue with like three roads, three
Mhm.
2-lane roads coming into it, surrounded by farmland in a major city, and just the infrastructure and the thought behind where do we stage shuttle services, how do we maneuver lines, the people that work the lines are incredible. But like, as we're walking and I would grab somebody that worked for the track, like they would actually stop and like have a conversation and answer questions. And it like the whole experience, this is not flattery by any means, because I honestly, like, I think I would attack
Yeah.
if I had a reason to, but
Mhm.
I I didn't have any reason to like pull people aside on more than one occasion where somebody was like, "Oh, hey, I know you're trying to get over there. Here's how you get there, but go to the app, do this, and move on." And and it'll take you through there. And I'm like, "Yeah, right." Like, you know, I I have an app that does mapping technology. Like, I understand how hard of a build that is. And
Mhm.
it's like right there, and it's laid on top of the track, and you can see where you're at and how you get where you go, and if you need anything, like it's all there, and it works, which is also, um I don't know, proclaim to your success as a group. I'm really impressed by high performing people, and like, I guess even the vendors of Formula One are high performing people.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Just, it all falls back to the people that we bring on our team and the people that we hire to, not everybody who's working Formula One works at the track full time. We have a lot of part-time staffers, and we want to make sure that they're also having a good time so that they relay that same message to the fans. Um, but yeah, there's always going to be questions that we haven't received before. We're sitting on 1,500 acres of land, and the track is 3.41 miles long. So, there's going to be unique questions. And we've kind of come to realize that as much information as we can, we're going to push it to the fans. So the best way to get here, what you can bring, like our frequently asked questions page, I think has over like 100 options. But this year we really focused on fan communication, just because if you've never been out here before, it can be a little daunting in how large it is. And I remember my first race, I had no idea that this amount of people were going to arrive on site. Because if you're here on any other day of the week that's not a race weekend, you know, it's much more laid back. I work out of the paddock, so like it's polar opposites. And so we implemented a lot of new ways to communicate with our fans. One, we got a texting platform. So in case of emergency, if there's something that we really want to push towards the fans, it's something also that we can provide for sponsors. We can send push notifications or text messages to majority of our fans who are on site, which can be really critical this day and age when it comes to mass events like this, because sometimes information needs to get to them as soon as possible. And so we implemented the texting platform and the push notifications through our app. And then we also just made our map 10 times better than it's ever been. We really focused on, okay, if someone's using this map, what exactly are they using it for? Obviously, wayfinding is the main reason why you're looking at a map, because you're saying, I'm here and I want to get there. How do I do that? So implementing, you know, kind of like you said, the Google walking, those types of paths are in the map. But then as well as, you know, we have the ability now to, it's an interactive map. So if you are on the website, you could, if you're sitting somewhere and you need to find where restrooms are, or if you need, you know, shade or food, if you have a specific allergy, things like that. We don't want anybody to come on site and feel like they weren't thought of, or, you know, that their needs weren't met. So we really focused on all of the communication and the best way that the fans will engage with the communication.
There's one thing that I found really impressive with that experience, because when you can find several 100,000 people into a small area, data coverage becomes problematic.
Mhm.
And you know, and it's given anywhere. Like if you're in at any venue, baseball, football, whatever it is, like everything kind of throttles down. It
Mhm.
still worked. So like while I couldn't live stream anything
Mhm.
for Formula Access, but when I was hungry, you know, or we needed to use the restroom, like the map worked. And I think that like that level of experience and thought into, you know, how you throttle data, or like how you use that data, because I understand like if you have no data, even interactive maps don't work. So to have an offline mode like that where it functions off of networks is extremely impressive, because I don't care how big the organization is, that level of detail generally does not flow down to an experience. And I, you know, again, I work with a lot of major companies about customer experience, and you guys just nailed it. And I understand there's always room for improvement, but like you nailed it. And
Yeah,
I had so much fun. I didn't have to think about anything.
that's all that we want to hear. Our we have our IT team is, you know, they're on site weeks leading up. We're communicating with major providers to make sure that this is happening. Where, you know, I like to think of it as is you go to the airport and you get free Wi-Fi. It's not going to be the strongest Wi-Fi, but it's going to get you what you need. And I think that was the main goal, was if fans are out here, they're going to have questions. And if we're going to provide them with all these things on digitally, then they need to be able to access them. So our IT team just kind of crushed it this year in making sure that people were able to call Ubers at the end of the night, or people were able to find where they're trying to go, or the restrooms, or anything like that. I think that was a real big focus of ours this year as well, just making sure, because at this point it's our 10th race, and the year before was the biggest race we'd ever have. So we knew that there was going to be hundreds of thousands of people here. And I think we just never took that for granted. I think we fully prepared for that, which is great because it just made the event that much more rewarding after the fact.
How did you get Uber to suggest a shuttle? That floored me on race day, and I was like, I'm really tired. I just want to go home, and it was like we were driving out the following morning and just wanted to like go grab dinner. And I
Mhm.
was like, I bet, the line is moving, but I bet an Uber would be way faster. And I imagine that there's Ubers here. And like I turned it on and it suggested the route to get to the shuttle
Mhm.
service to the Uber pickup spot. I was like, how does Coda convince Uber to create this experience? I mean, you guys, that's the level of detail that I'm talking about here.
Mhm. We have a department for everything at Coda. So we have a transportation and pretty much logistics department. And I'm not sure how they convinced Uber, but that has always been something top of mind, especially now. A lot of people come to the event, they want to have a good time, but they also want to get a safe ride home. So, the shuttles we've revamped a couple of times, and I think this past year was by far the most successful we've had with it. But also just, we are one of the largest events that happens in the city of Austin. And I think with that comes, I don't want to say clout, but it does a little bit. So we're able to get the right people on the phone and kind of make sure that we're supported as best as we can going into the weekend.
I love it. I love you. Amazing job. We'll be back. So you won't see a 20-year span again without me
Yeah.
going to a race.
Awesome.
So you're the digital marketing manager for the track. Like what do you do? What does that actually mean?
Um, it's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot. I like to focus mainly on content creation and live coverage. That only happens a few weekends out of the year that I get to fully step into the role that I love. But the other time of year, I'm posting on social, I'm creating email campaigns, making sure the website is up to date. So editing all of those things just so that all of our messaging is consistent. Any way you interact with us digitally, it is all cohesive together. So emails, website, social media, I'm sure there's a bunch I'm missing. But content creation is probably my biggest passion when it comes to working here.
So what I do them all. What
Mhm.
works best for you guys? Like where do you see the masses stream in with regards to social media?
Well, I've noticed, this past F1 was my third F1 race at Coda. And so there is a timeline of how from 2 weeks out, how that weekend or 2 weeks kind of plays. And, our most successful content is right at the beginning of the weekend. It's usually like the Monday or Tuesday when the F1 cargo arrives.
Hmm.
And, this is easily like one of my top favorite days of the year. I get to go to the airport and we film as the plane is coming in. They're unloading the containers and the cars, and it's all branded with the teams and F1 logos on it. So the fans love that just because it's okay. Now F1 has touched down in Texas. Like it's no secret that we put on a huge show and a lot of entertainment value across the weekend. So I think, building that excitement and seeing those behind the scenes things that you wouldn't see if you were streaming just the race itself. So, when you're watching the F1 in Mexico City, they're not showing you the cargo getting taken off the planes. It's really the behind the scenes stuff that the fans love. And, garage tours always does super well, or it's become super popular on TikTok these days to film the drivers as they're walking into the paddock on the morning of race day, just because you can tell so much about where that driver's headspace is
Mm.
by them walking in. Cowboy Rick is just strutting in on a horse and wearing a cowboy hat, which is just not done at any other race. And then, you have Lewis Hamilton, who is just a fashion icon who's showing up and like really representing his own personal style. And I think the fans love to see that, just because it's not them in the cars. There's so much more going on outside of the race.
See, you are a marketing kindred soul here. So
Yeah.
you get it. When Drive to Survive first came out, obviously everybody liked it. And as the progression happened of like the drama around it, it still created kind of a fire in the industry or the sport to grow, especially stateside here.
Mhm.
And you watched people finally connect to a driver. It wasn't just a helmet in a car. It was like, well, this is Daniel Ricciardo. Like, I get his personality now. Like, I feel like I know him as much as I could know somebody that I don't really know. And even like the team bosses, and that's honestly like the DNA of what Formula Access is to provide an access into the sport, because there are thousands of people at a team or thousands of people at a venue. Or like, one thing that we're starting to do now is we're starting to pull other motorsports content creators into the show as well, to talk about the impact that this sport, because it is the most engaged sport in the world on social media. And
Mhm.
you understand that. And so really trying to allow people to see inside of the sport, the digital marketing managers. I've, right after we get done, I have somebody from F1 Experiences coming in and really talking about and unpacking, why can I only go here when I'm at a race? Why can't I go anywhere else? And so understanding the 1,000-armed monster that the sport is, and like, how do I get that experience at the track, and really unpacking that. It's a really complicated sport.
Yeah.
You guys do it a service by making the experience of the race thoughtless. I get to go and enjoy something that I'm passionate and excited about, and not have to be like, where do I sit? Where do I go? Where do I eat? And like, there's always something happening at the track. And you also do a really good job of the story leading into the race weekend. You just said it yourself, of like, they're here, they're unpacking, they're walking in, they're driving in, they're coming in on a horse, and just really allowing us as fans to see that part of it, because we just see static images, which as well as I do, that's going wayward and out. And short, what do they call it, short form content is really taking off. And I know for us, YouTube Shorts and TikTok is like my number one engaged service. Like Facebook, while they have like unbelievably targeted marketing,
Mhm.
just doesn't really connect as well as, dropping a short form video of 10 or 20 or 30 seconds of our conversation will get as much as a YouTube video on TikTok. So I love that you guys do that.
Yeah, it's funny. I kind of always look at it the same way as, Americans love the NFL. Why do they love it? Because there's so much politics and background. Hard Knocks is a perfect example. Drive to Survive is basically Hard Knocks. It kind of gives you a better, deeper inside look of what they're doing and what the drivers are doing. And Drive to Survive really skyrocketed fans, especially American fans, to pay attention to the sport, just because before I felt almost as if it was a little, this is behind closed doors. Nobody needs to see us talking strategy or fighting with one another. But that's what makes people want to watch. That's what makes people want to be engaged, or that's what makes people choose the driver that they're, going to support that year. And I think we found that that type of content is what the fans want to see. And, that is why we're showcasing kind of, you might see some weird behind the scenes stuff that we do, but it ends up always being the most, like, the best performing content.
How big is your team?
So we actually have a pretty small team. For the event, we usually hire a team of photographers and a videographer company that comes and does really well put together packaged videos. But then it's just myself and then my coworker, Matt Kalina, and he and I, that we started the same week together. So everything that we do is kind of tied together, which has been amazing. And, we have found that, like, we split up the weekend in a unique way. So I usually cover all things that are happening in the paddock, the drivers, the garages, the celebrities, the grid on Sunday, podium. And then Matt does a lot of the outside of the track, which, I mean, it sounds like I have, the best spot of that, but to be honest, Matt gets to see all of the fans having fun, all of the fan activations and live music and food and the actual, like, liveliness of the crowd. So we are a small team, but we have a lot of people who support us, which is super helpful.
It's a unique fan experience in Formula One because, in I don't know, call it NFL, Major League Baseball, it's like torn. You've got your home fans and your visitor fans. And at a race, we had general admin and I wanted to get to the peak of turn one and watch the start of the race. It's shoulder to shoulder with tens of thousands of people packed into turn one. And you're just kind of like weaving and everybody's so nice. Nobody's like, get out of my way. Like, the only time people get crazy is when you climb up on the fence. And the whole fans like start screaming, like chanting, get off the fence, or whatever the term is that they use. But other than that, it's such an engaging crowd. Like, you're next to a stranger talking about a sport that you're both passionate about. I was really, really impressed with it. There's no like call it Max Lewis split there at all. None of that anywhere. It was really, really special. However, you do take suggestions. You guys need cars, and maybe there were cars there, but having Formula One cars, their show cars that they have, I couldn't find any of those anywhere. I wanted to shoot some content and I couldn't find any.
Usually there's like one or two in the Grand Plaza, but yeah, it's funny what we choose to surround the track is always unique, and we try to tie it back to our roots. The Texas rodeo, we have a big Hispanic culture in Texas. There's all these different things. So I don't know if you got to travel around the track as much, but we had kind of these, we call them fan villages. So we have the La Cantina, we have the beer garden, we have Wonderland, which kind of pays an homage to Burning Man a little bit. But there's all these different activation spaces. So it's really unique because there's all types of people who come to our event, different cultures, different personalities, different fans. So we might have somebody coming to the F1 race just to see Ed Sheeran and doesn't really care about F1. But then we also have people who don't really care about Green Day or Ed Sheeran, and they're just there to watch the race. But I think that the fans really interact well with each other, mainly because you can kind of find your place in every single one of the teams, whether it's Haas because they're American, or, Lewis because he's been reigning champ for so many years, or Max because he's doing so well. And then, of course, I think our company's favorite is Daniel Ricciardo, which we're so sad to see him leave, just because he was the best promoter of our race. I mean, he showed up every day wearing cowboy boots, a Texas Longhorn jersey, on a horse, like I said. It's really their personalities. It's a very friendly sport in the sense of, like, even the drivers who aren't on the same teams, they get along with each other. So I think they expect the fans to do the same.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the constant. There was always something to do,
Mhm.
and there was always something happening somewhere. So there was never much downtime to just like be like, what do I do? What's
Mhm.
happening? It was always, a concert upcoming, or as you said, the different activations around the track. And I totally appreciate that. Do you guys do stuff year round to market the race, or is it just kind of confined to, like, we're going to have the Formula 1 race here and then we have other series throughout the year?
So we market F1. I mean, we're in talks now of when we're doing this and when we're going to go on sale. And so a lot of when we're supporting the F1 race, it's usually surrounded by a well thought out campaign. So when we're doing sign up to be the first to know about next year's race, even at the race, like this past year, we were inviting fans to sign up at the race for next year's race. So, I mean, even when the race ends, your mind flips back to, okay, now we have a different race to promote. It's unique here just because we also do so many other things. We also have MotoGP. We once had IndyCar, and then NASCAR has now made a home here. So the year has about 3 to 5 dates that are massive to us. And so balancing what you are promoting, and okay, well, we can't promote F1 too much because we want to go on sale with Moto or something like that sense. So it's kind of balancing, because a lot of our fans are coming to us, or our followers on social are F1 fans, and that's pretty much the meat of what they want to see. But then we also have the fans who are following us to learn about concerts that we have throughout the year, or we have all these smaller events like bike nights, so people can come and safely ride their bike on Tuesday nights for a few months over the summer to just have a safe space to ride their bike. And then, we're building the Turn 11 car condos, which is just going to be a super, you know, I don't want to say classy, but super like elevated experience of a car garage. And you can, stay there during events and races and have like a really F1 focused weekend. And
Like,
then, we also have karting. So there's just so much going on that it's kind of hard balancing what we want to promote, but usually it all surrounds some type of campaign.
you have a really good understanding. I mean, obviously you guys have a wide range of services and products that you offer.
Mhm.
And I think Formula 1 fans in general can kind of sniff out a lack of experience or understanding, and you speak very well to the sport and show that. Like, what's your origins, like, how did you get into motorsports?
So, I actually applied for the role I have now, in 2019, about in the summertime, and I got the interview. I had come out here before for concerts, but I was never a race fan. I grew up playing soccer. I'm from Texas, so racing really wasn't something that I was exposed to ever. And so funny enough, I got the job, which I didn't know at the time was going to end up being my dream job. And I started in September of 2019. And then the F1, my first race ever and my first F1 ever was a month later. I still have no idea how I did it, if I'm being honest, just because what I know now is 100 times more than what I knew 3 years ago. So, you know, I was lucky enough to, my boss at the time, Regan Hawley, he's been at the track since the beginning. So he knows everything that there is to know. I mean, his knowledge is so valuable just because of his experience. And so you know, he kind of helped me through, and my coworker Matt as well. We worked together to make sure that everything was being done correctly, but it was pretty wild. I was just handed the Instagram password and told to cover the event, and thankfully it worked out and I'm still here. But yeah, I've grown fond of racing for sure over the years. F1 is awesome. I love Drive to Survive and all that, but I also really love MotoGP because it's so unique, and you know, they're dragging their knees on the track in their turns. So I've become a fan, but it's pretty wild that I was just kind of thrown into this world and it worked out.
That's I feel like it's one of those sports, and even MotoGP, like every one that I ran into and just kind of had conversations at the track with were like, oh man, you like this. You
Mhm.
have to go to the MotoGP race and check that out. Like that's really, really impressive venue, and probably, you know, to them more mature
Mhm.
at the track. And you know, so I have enough trouble following just Formula One and kind of being a master of my craft. Like it's impressive that, you know, you understand Formula One, MotoGP, and then like even karting is its own world, and just trying to understand that, because not a lot of venues do that well. You know, not a lot in it. You're just two people. You
Mhm.
know, obviously you have support through vendors, but you're just two people working this. And I've connected with a lot of tracks just through this. And then my son also karts. And motorsports in general does a very lackluster job of promoting itself and allowing those doors to open to fans, even at karting tracks all over the country, like all over the country. This is not just St. Louis or whatever, but you guys do an impeccable job of promoting the event and allowing fans to understand, because I've paid attention more in the last 2 years as you know, I want to start going to races. I have, you know, the largest blog on Quora and Formula One. And, you know, I talk about the business and leadership, and of course, marketing and sponsorship goes hand in hand. And, you know, I do kind of attack a little bit because people don't tell a story well. And when you click on it, that's one thing that I've caught on to about Austin. And, you know, you start to see it in Miami, you know, and
Mhm.
they're very new, you know, and maybe a little over the top, but you guys do it really, really well, and allowing the fans to kind of understand what's coming up and going on. I watch that because we have a marketing agency, and because, you know, when you put something out there and it's just a static image, it's like, whatever, you know, keep moving. But um kudos.
Thank you. It's kind of unique because you know, if I was working for a team, I'm focusing only on each race, F1, week after week after week, but working as the track itself or working at the venue itself, we just have so many things that are going on here. And we recently redesigned our entire website, and it was about a year project. And we really, really put into consideration that everybody who's visiting our website isn't going to be an F1 fan. And, we have Moto, we have NASCAR, but then we also have those smaller events. So, like I said, it's just balancing all of the things that's going on here. And we want the fans to know that when they come for F1, that they're welcome back at those other smaller events as well. We don't want you just at the F1 race. We want you to be a fan of the track. We want you to associate all of those good times and those moments with us. We have to constantly remind ourselves that F1 is only one weekend out of the year. And, it is the biggest event that we put on here, but there's a lot of other stuff that we want the fans to know about when they're interacting with us digitally.
How do you educate yourself as a marketer for that? Because I in a way am marketing Formula One,
Mhm,
and it takes a lot to package content up, because in Formula One, and I would argue that in motorsports, audiences are starving for content. So
mhm,
no matter how much I put out, it's getting consumed. And if I put out more, it would still get consumed at the same rate. How do you educate yourself as a fan with drivers, teams, news, infrastructure, hashtags,
mhm,
and understanding those, very like, hashtags are trendy, so they
mhm,
change all the time. And every driver has their own kind of unique stamp or tag or whatever that is. And as you go lower, you know, Daniel Ricciardo's handles might be Daniel Ricciardo, but when you get to some of the lower level support series that also attend your track, like, they're not as polished. So you have to dig. How do you and your team kind of track that, trend that, stay informed and educated?
So there's a lot of different things. When I'm logged into the Coda Twitter account or logged in as Coda on any social platform, it's automatically based on the algorithm feeding us other racing news and information. So a lot of the times I'm scrolling LinkedIn, I'm scrolling TikTok, I'm scrolling Instagram. And if I see something that is happening, especially at like another race or at another venue, we like to follow along with that. And we'll read articles. We try our best to stay informed. We are constantly monitoring what other races are doing and how we can set ourselves apart from other races. Um, but also, like I said, just staying on top of trends and knowing what's happening. And then, of course, like the support races and things like that, we usually get connected about a month out before the event with those. I think we had the Masters Endurance this past year, so we're communicating with their HQ, making sure that our messaging is on brand with what they have been pushing out, and then also assisting them. So if they're posting stuff on social, us as a venue, we want racing to become the most popular sport in America. That might be a pipe dream, but that's our goal and that's our bread and butter. So if Masters Endurance doesn't have as many followers or something, we want to support them so that they are successful, because in return then we will be successful, because then people won't just be coming out for F1, they might want to come out for MotoGP or W Series or any of those other support races that are going on.
Do you guys have relationships with the platforms to help just get a general level of engagement? Because for the audience to understand, social media posting, from a, call it a B2C, or just extending your reach beyond, the 2,000, 3,000, 5, 10,000 followers that you have on each platform, to extend beyond that, obviously ads and things like that can help you extend it, but you still have to hold true to the fundamentals of each individual personality, driver, team, topic of news has its own hashtag on each platform. So thinking about, if I have 10 social media platforms kind of in our scope, all of those individuals, not just in Formula One, not just in MotoGP, not just in NASCAR, but like, is the sport funneling this stuff down to you as well? So like when Formula One comes, they're like, I don't like a brand identity package of
Mhm.
like, here's all
Yeah.
our hashtags, our branding, our messaging, our
Yeah, it's super helpful because usually going into a race weekend from whether it's moto or Indy or F1, we will get pretty much like you said, a packet, and they have all of the races, hashtags, they have like we know that we're hashtag USGP, and so we use that in everything. This past year, since it was our 10th anniversary of 10 years of F1 at Coda, we started using Coda 10. And we use the hashtags that are provided just because F1 social media has significantly more followers than we do, and so we know that fans are following what F1 is posting, and so we want to kind of tag on to that and make sure that they're seeing our stuff while scrolling F1 stuff as well. But a lot of it is provided to us, which really takes a lot off of our plate, because then we don't have to, sit down, do the analytics and figure out what content is producing the best, because 99% of the time, whatever hashtag is given to us is the one that is getting the most engagement.
that communication is really impressive. I've had a couple of people from Williams on the show,
Mhm.
and when you get involved with them, they send brand guidelines over. So like, I have their plethora of logos, their transparent logos, their PNGs, I have their font styles, I have their messaging, like what is their digital language that they speak, their color codes, like not just blue and white and gray. It's here are the hues of that, and the RGBs and the CMYKs of that particular brand. And then comes a massive Dropbox of images to keep very high high intensity images with that as well. So you're not kind of getting a blurry camera phone image or something somebody took. They're very, very high quality and professional. And I that made those episodes really easy to promote, because they just give it to you.
Yeah,
But it's
it's
also, go
it's
ahead.
super helpful. It's just super helpful. And you know, if we are setting something up with Lewis Hamilton, uh, I'm gonna trust his photographer to take the best photo instead of ours, just because he knows him, he knows what angles, he knows the lighting of the team building, things like that. And it's really awesome that we have that open communication with not just F1, but the teams and the drivers, because when they come on site, I mean, they vocalize immensely how much this is their favorite race, and the fans are unlike any other. And so I think, it took a little bit of hard work to kind of get to this point, but I think the relationship is so strong now between us and the drivers and F1 and the teams. And again, that just helps us so much.
Are you guys engaging with not only the sport itself, but with the teams as well as the drivers? So I mean, you're really connected to the people of motorsport during a race weekend.
Yeah, funny story. So since it was our 10-year anniversary, we wanted to give gifts to all of the drivers. And so it was probably one of the cooler things that we've done. Since we are the live music capital of the world, we got them all personalized record players with gifting team did such a good job. They kind of stalked the drivers a little bit and found out what music they like. So each of the drivers got personalized record players with 4 records of their music choice. And then we tied in a sponsorship element. So they got a pair of handmade Tecovas boots, which was one of our sponsors. And so all the drivers arrived Thursday, and we spent the entire afternoon hand delivering all of these gifts to the drivers. And, that took a lot of, putting together a calendar of like, we're going to Mercedes at 12:05, we're going to McLaren at 12:10. Like, we only had 5-minute increments, and the teams and drivers in F1 were thrilled about it. They welcomed us with open arms. That opportunity, I don't think would have been provided many years ago when we first started, but now that we've really solidified ourselves in the States, they're so eager to work with us and do fun things like that. And again, that was one of the best performing content pieces over the weekend, was all the drivers opening these really unique gifts. And it was awesome because they loved it, because it was personalized. So they really want to work with us. And I mean, as the track social media person, like, that is music to my ears. I love that.
How did you actually get here? You're really articulate in your communication, and you do a really good job of like speaking corporately about the track. What did you do before you were at the track?
So I have a background in sports. Growing up, I played very high level soccer. I was traveling out of the state like once a month. I played in college. It was so I had a little bit of media training, which is probably what you're hearing. But I started in sales, and I think that's what kind of helps me in this role, because at the end of the day, we're trying to sell tickets and packages and things like that. So working here, it kind of gave me that sense again of like being a part of a team and working together for one major goal, which is a successful event or like winning a national title. But I think that's kind of what has made me successful in this job, is that I kind of have a sports background and I kind of understand the politics better in sports, but then also just, being a part of a team and working for something that I find so valuable. And again, like, I've had some of the best boss I've ever had in my life was here and is still here. And their knowledge has just helped me understand what exactly we're trying to do.
I think I'm going to go deep here. When you are marketing, everything that touches the world is coming basically from your chair. So like, if I hear Coda 10, I'm on social media, I'm on whatever, and I see Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Daniel Ricciardo on a horse, whatever, like, that is really coming from your chair and your team. Any messaging or anything that like exits the 1,500 acres that you guys have. And I'm a fan of the motorsport itself. I love competition. I grew up playing sports. I still, I'm like highly competitive. And I think that's what differentiates a Formula One or just a motorsports fan, is the competition. And the loyal fan is the fan that shows up every year to the track. Like, that's their thing, their habit. And Austin does an incredible job of, I think, marketing and staying true to that fan, to that loyal fan, to that healthy fan, to not even a fan of the motorsport, just a fan of competition or just the environment itself. You alluded to it earlier. Like, I don't understand racing, and I go for Ed Sheeran.
Mhm.
And when I look at other venues, I like, maybe I'm going to get kicked in the teeth for this, but like Vegas, like I'm going to go to Vegas because that's going to be spectacular. Okay. But there was so much noise coming from the venue about the $100,000 ticket, and
Yeah.
people are like, the true fit, like, yeah, I'm not going to spend 100 grand for me and my son to go watch a race. And I think they tripped up in that, and not saying that that was a corporate thing. Like, that type of package is for like my company to take my customers
Right.
to an event as a sales tool or a marketing tool, or like an employee
Mhm.
perk for them. It's not, I'm not going to spend $100,000 to take my kid, or my wife to a race. And I think they tripped up there because there was a lot of noise around social media about losing touch to the fan. And I've never heard that message come from your track ever. And I went to the track, and I know you have those services available, but it's not, that noise is not coming out. And, to have a sellout crowd, I imagine all of those experiences, those services, and those suites were sold out as well. And just to know that you can be successful, not kind of alienating the fan that just wants to go and not buy a general admin ticket and feel like a loser at the track, and I kind of felt like that when I went. Like, I was like, oh, general admin, I'm not really sure if I'm like here, because Formula One is highly restrictive, with
Mhm.
regards to access. And I understand it's a global massive platform, otherwise your paddock would get overrun by people. But like IndyCar, for example, I can go to the track, and if I know somebody, they can kind of grab my hand and take me back somewhere, and hey, look, check this out, and then kick me out. But it the track does such a good job of not allowing that noise to come out, but also as a fan,
Mhm.
not kind of segmenting social stuff. I don't know. I
Yeah.
You do a good job of educating the difference. Like, I never felt anywhere that, this is for corporations, and this is for, fathers and sons, and this is for like whoever.
Yeah.
There's not like a riff raff section at
Yeah.
the track. And I appreciate that a lot, because your your brand story is for the passionate motorsport fan. And I would imagine that you hold true to that in any series that shows up. I had friends that were at the track for sports cars a week or two ago, and it again, very, very much the same. I still saw your social media out for those events as well. So keep
Yeah.
keep doing that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's cool. We try to be, affordable is one of those options, but we don't want to be out of touch. I think that's something that is why people love us so much, is because we are in touch with what our fans want. And like I said earlier, we really listen to what they're saying. I mean, even when other venues or tracks go on sale, we're dialed in to what people are saying and the response. Um, Personally, I would never buy a ticket that's $100,000 on from social media. That just doesn't seem, that doesn't seem natural to me. I don't think that people are buying the thousands of dollars tickets through social media. And
Hmm.
our social media is, majority of our fans are the GA fans. And so there's really not a bad seat in the house. Even if you're a GA fan, some of the access points are unbelievable that you get to see the track from. It's spread out all across the property, so you get to experience the track from pretty much every angle. You can see the back straight, you can see the S's, you can see, them driving around the tower, and you're very, very close to the action. But we have an incredible sales team who does make those ginormous sales. That is awesome for us. But again, that's not the reality of a lot of our fans. And we just never want to be out of touch or expecting too much from people. And, also just, we don't want to kill the sport. Making the race affordable and making it something that people can continually come back to and not feel like they're breaking the bank is only going to help the sport itself.
It is maybe call it Texas.
Mm-hmm.
That the Southern hospitality aspect of it. I think there's an appreciation for fans to kind of hear, like, we're just as passionate about the sport as you are, and we're going to create that experience. And another really nice touch for anybody that's never been is when the race is over, you can go hang out on the track. And I knew people rush the podium after the race, but then everybody just starts walking around the track and like on the rumble strips, and like it was really neat to do that. But I think, as a first time attendee to the race, all of the grandstands, kind of the security points left.
Mm-hmm.
And because, obviously because this is like a thing that I do, and I want to create an experience through this show for my viewers as well. We went after the race was over. We just, we got a burger and a water, and we went from grandstand to grandstand and like started mapping out where to get tickets for next year. So while we did GA, like purposefully to find the spot,
Mm-hmm.
after the race, we were able to just go everywhere and, sit down and be like, okay, from this grandstand, I can see turn 1 and turn 3, and, and you could really kind of map it out. Because for anybody that's never been, and even if you've played the video game, turn 1 is a massive elevation. I was shocked by how steep that turn is, and then how it comes back down. You can actually see that from almost any grandstand. So you're not just getting the experience of, I'm going to sit in a grandstand and see one turn. There's so much elevation change that you can really kind of get a good lay of the land. And I don't know, you guys have done I should shut up, but you guys have done a really good job of just really creating an experience for the any fan.
Yeah, I think the track invasion is what we call it. And I think that just ties back to giving the fans a behind the scenes look. The fact that you're able to put your feet on the same ground that the tires were literally minutes ago just rolling over is insanity. And we treat it almost like the Super Bowl, where it's the last 2 minutes of the game. Tell the security guards to get out so that the fans can rush the field. Like, that's what's happening. And it's cool because the front straight is so large, and I guess people don't ever realize that, but you get to see everything that's happening. We even have Texas shaped confetti that's flying from the ceiling. Like, we really want you to feel almost like you are the champion, like you finished the long weekend, like this was such an awesome event. And like, we have people who stay here a few hours after the event, just like you did, and they just walk around because there's something so euphoric about once having 100,000+ people there to all of a sudden it's dead silent. And it's one of those weird moments that you don't really get to experience anywhere else. It's something that really only the drivers get to experience. So being that close, and then also being able to, touch the track. We have people who every year without fail, they sign the finish line. And it's one of the coolest experiences because, we don't strip the paint. So those people's names are going to be written on our track forever, which is such a cool thing to be able to say.
Nice touch. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
You tell your boss never to let you leave.
It was
What?
cool. This past year so we did like a lot of repurpose or repaving the track, just fixing some areas and making it the most smooth. And so this year, a certain level, we got to send home an actual piece of the track and like a plaque. And like things like that are just, it just is like the nice touch that makes people's experience even better.
In all of your 3 years at the
Mhm.
track, what's been your pinch me moment? Like what's an experience that you've had during an event where you're just like, I can't believe that I'm here.
Yeah. Um, Handing out the stuff to the drivers was pretty cool, but my all-time pinch me moment, so this has now become a ritual. Shaquille O'Neal, aka DJ Diesel, he gets in this old I think it's a Cadillac or something, and it has Longhorns on the front, and he presents the trophy at the podium. So lucky for me, I am the social media person, so he also DJs on top of the podium after the race. So after the drivers celebrate on the podium, they go back into their team buildings. There's still thousands of people on the track. And we want to alleviate a little bit of the traffic and the egress of people leaving. So we hire Shaquille O'Neal to come and DJ on top of the podium after the race. Weirdly enough, I was right place, right time. He walks up, we walk up to the podium together, and then I told him, hey, I'm with Coda Social Media. I had a GoPro. I was like, is there any way that you could like do something with the GoPro? And he was like, yeah, just come in the booth with me. And I'm like, what? And so I got to stand behind Shaquille O'Neal while he's DJing to thousands of people. And he like grabbed the GoPro from me. He sang into the camera. Like I have some of the best content I think I've ever captured in my life. And he was the nicest human being. So it just made it even that much cooler. But I mean, just it's always the final Sunday that you feel the best because everything has come to an end. You've successfully put on the event, but it's always those little moments where you're like, how on earth did I end up in a DJ booth with Shaquille O'Neal? But it was incredible. It was awesome.
Have you not, I mean, you have far more access than I do, but
Mhm.
don't you feel like the sport is very connected to the fan?
Oh yeah.
Very like very approachable and reachable. When I started this podcast, I sent out like 100, 200 emails and LinkedIn messages. Just I was like, 5 people are going to respond back to this thing, and I'll do like one a quarter. This will go with my writing and my blog and all that stuff. It's fine. And almost all of them have responded. And even as the season is winding down, those messages that I sent are now being responded to, like big names, like Yos Capito. I mean, like the big names in the sport communicate with you like you're a human, and you are a fan, but it's not like weird. It's like, yeah, I'd totally love to do that. Here's my assistant. Here's our communications director. Like, get it set up. And I appreciate that. I think that shows that the sport hasn't outgrown the fan. And it sounds to me like even somebody behind the scenes, like you see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, just when we were hand delivering the driver's gifts, I mean, they were giving us hugs, they were high-fiving us, they were saying this is the coolest gift they've ever gotten. So, I mean, in any other place or any other sport, you might hand something to a major quarterback or somebody and they sign it and give it back to you. I mean, those drivers are signing things every 30 seconds in the paddock because like you said, there's F1 experiences that comes in and does tours and things like that. And it's always like a very meaningful connection to them, whether it's a little kid or a grown adult who wants them to sign their hat. there's always like a conversation that's happening and an appreciation that that fan is showing so much love. And I think it's also just back to the bigger picture of, I think it's F1 and us realizing, and the drivers and the teams realizing that F1 is finally getting the recognition it deserves in America. And it's finally getting the fan base. And I think they're seeing it now. And so coming here and having fans want things to get signed and desperate to take a selfie with a driver only means good things for the sport. That just means that they're getting more and more notable. And that's all that any of us really want.
It's really neat. So my primary writing where I kind of got started was in Quora. It's like a very refined Reddit, like a polished Reddit. And their team, for any content creators that have a high level of engagement, they set up Zoom calls with them, and they just kind of like, what's your experience been, what's working, what's not. They get a lot of customer feedback for their creators. And so set up a Zoom call and called me, set that up. And, she's like, well, what do you do? And I was like, I write on the business of Formula One. And she's like, oh my God, that's Drive to Survive, and like, she's like, I never knew this thing existed, like, where has this been my whole life? And she was a rabid fan of the sport by a TV show, and had really kind of gotten excited about that. I really appreciate how fast it's grown, and just the fan itself. What didn't you expect around the paddock?
I didn't expect to have as much access as I was given. It was pretty wild to me, especially my first race in 2019. This was pre-COVID, pre any restrictions. And I mean, I had spent the entire month memorizing the drivers, memorizing the teams, trying to make sure that I knew everything that I possibly could before going into this weekend. And I really expected them to be never visible or never, available. And it was like it was the week of F1, and all of the drivers had come into town. And funny enough, right place, right time, I was offered to go to NASA and do a behind the scenes tour with a couple of the drivers. And so I spent an entire day, and I came home, and I remember called my parents, and I was like, I just had the wildest experience. I was like, I think I was just with probably some of the biggest names in motorsports, and they were the nicest people. You would have never known that they were like that. And then just them walking around the paddock, being available for something to be posted on social, like it was insane to me at how much just open space there was to kind of figure out what to do.
Yeah, I think that's a differentiator in motorsports. I got to spend some time with some of the leadership of Andretti earlier this year, and for some reason, lots of young drivers' parents call me about just kind of advisory services. I speak a lot about the business end of Formula One and how things kind of work, and I was asking them, what do you look for in a driver? Like, beyond speed, beyond talent, what are you looking for? And it was always character, and, not having too big of a head. And, obviously from the business end of that is like, we don't want to buy problems. But it was, how are these young people interacting with fans? How are they interacting and engaging people? Like, if they run into them at the airport, if they run into them at the track, do they stop and turn and smile? Do they get down and talk to, a young person? Do they look people in the eye? Do they take the time to do that? Even if it takes them 45 minutes to walk across the paddock because they keep having to stop. Do they look like they're enjoying themselves? And it sounds to me like even in Formula One, that that kind of character test still applies.
Yeah, and just on top of that, like I said, the fans are growing crazy. I mean, I was seeing Sunday night, Sunday morning, Saturday night, fans were starting to line up outside the hotels downtown Austin. Like they were, and I've never seen that before. And so I think, like I said, I think that they're seeing that Americans are starting to watch F1 and they're thrilled about it. So they
I
will.
they do build up, but secret tip for you fans. After Friday practice, we went to Target to get water for our Airbnb and some snacks and food and stuff. I'd be willing to say a significant number of the team's people, obviously they have all their gear on. These are not fan gear, these are team gear that you see back here. Walking through Target, that was a pretty surreal experience to be like, what do you do?
Yep. And they all go out Sunday night too after the race weekend. So if after the race weekend, if you have it in you and you go out Sunday night, you very easily could run into a driver or anybody. I mean, I think it was Sebastian Vettel who ended up, we have this thing, it's called Barton Springs and it's freezing cold water. And but there's a TikTok that went viral and it's him jumping off a diving board into Barton Springs. And it's like, this guy is X amount of world championships and he's out here just swimming with everybody else in Austin. And it was kind of cool because I think the only person who recognized him really was the guy filming. Like he wasn't being bothered by anybody. So I think they're perfectly on the line of like, they can still go to Target or do those things and maybe not run into people, but when they're like crazy fans are here, they are interacting with them. So I think they're right on the line of not too famous just yet.
There was speaking of, there was a TikTok this morning of Sebastian Vettel in an airport, like with all the normal people sitting in the seats with, obviously he had his hoodie on and stuff and, very unassuming. And I'm sure the only person that knew who he was the person videotaping it. But yeah, it's really neat to be able to get around and the normal Target that we all go to, and then you're in there one day and it's like, I think I saw you on TV.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that's one of like the most fun parts about it though, is the drivers truly are the most down to earth type of guys. Like they just, from my interactions with them, they are just so happy to be here that I think that's what people love about it, is that they know that, it's not permanent. So I think they make the most of what they have.
So I have kind of two deep-rooted purposes behind this show, and that is to allow fans inside of the sport, to give them access to people and stories and whatnot that they wouldn't otherwise get by watching, a race weekend, but also as a form of educating and inspiring young people to get into the sport. I think people in general see Formula One as this big, huge, intimidating, glitz and glam machine that only drivers and highly successful business people and entrepreneurs have access to. And in reality, it's just a very approachable, reachable business. And you have a unique perspective because you're in the sport and many other sports as kind of a vendor of, and I don't even want to say vendor, but a venue of Formula One itself. What advice do you have for young people like searching for a career and content creation or marketing? Because I think it's one of the misnomers of motorsport is like, you have to be an engineer, a driver, or an investor, or team owner, or billionaire sponsor. Like, how would you get into the sport, or how would you encourage young people to?
Yeah, I get probably about 3 to 5 messages a week of students who are in college or in high school, who are just looking for that type of information as well. And there's really no like clear cut answer, but I would say the best way to start is by building your network. And you know, it's nice because my first year I didn't know anybody in the paddock, but now my third year I was waving to people, I was giving people hugs, catching up with team engineers, the drivers recognized me. Like, I think you just have to put in the work and like find an internship or something like that that can at least get your foot in the door, because once you have your foot in the door, racing is so unique that you may start as the social media person. Like, I really never had picked up a camera before I started this role. I was more so posting on social and doing kind of like the ads in the back end. But I have recently found a whole new love for photography. And what's great is like Coda really supports me in trying to figure that out. So I get all this super nice equipment, and it's just working with the right people to know that you're headed in the right direction. So, you know, don't be afraid to shoot a message to anybody on LinkedIn, ask them about their experience, ask them if they know of anything internship or entry level position that is available. Because I mean, we always take interns on, we always take on, you know, part-time, and don't be afraid to volunteer or part-time for a race, just so that you kind of understand the back end of what goes into it. We had a couple of interns for the last 6 months, and you know, that those are going to be some major bullet points on their resume that they get to put that they participated in the largest F1 event in history. And they have the knowledge of the background, and you know, they weren't super skilled in a lot of, you know, motorsport knowledge or all those other things. It's really just be willing to help where you can, and you will find like your purpose when you get there.
Yeah, I think almost any profession, or call it talent and skill, that you have can be applied somewhere in
Mhm.
the sport. And I have a guest coming on in an hour, and she kind of has a very similar story to yours, of just kind of, I don't know how I can get this thing, but I want to be in it, and I'm going to find a way to get in it. And did the same thing, sent out social media posts and messages, and got connected and engaged, not directly for Mercedes,
Mhm.
but as F1 experiences. And and has thrived in it, and loves it. And just like you, she has made herself available to young people to
Mhm.
getting in. I had an aerodynamicist from Red Bull that we launched on Tuesday. Same story. He's like, I figured it out. I got the formula, and I'm just going to fire it out all over YouTube and teach people how to build a resume to work for a Formula One team. And, it's amazing how open armed the sport is in general, because it does have a perception of exclusivity and, shut doors. But I'll tell you firsthand, all the guests that I have, I just did that. I sent a LinkedIn. I sent you a LinkedIn message. You responded, and here we are.
I
So
think it helps that, you know, there's just everybody who's working for their teams. What we do is not necessarily easy. You know, there's a lot of long hours, there's a lot of long days, and you know, stressful moments of trying to figure out and plan everything. But at the end of the day, I feel what I'm doing is super meaningful and is going to impact a lot of people. And I think that's what kind of sets me and a lot of people apart. Like, everybody who's in the racing community has been in the racing community, whether you started as an engineer or you started as a social media person and then you move to a different team. Like, a lot of the people in the paddock year after year, that's why I'm recognizing a lot more people. It's the same people, but they are more than welcome to open any help that they can get. So, you know, you have all the people who've been there for years, but you also are starting to meet new faces and new people. Like, I mean, I was new 3 years ago, and I already feel like I'm part of the racing community and family now, just because of how many connections I've made over a 3-day span each year. It's crazy. I still communicate via WhatsApp with a lot of the people that I met who work for F1 or the teams, to this day. Like, we'll send each other funny things or things that are going on. And that type of connection is going to be the most valuable thing when it comes to staying in the sport or finding a job in the sport.
Yeah, I think passion begets passion. And I think anyone that I've talked to on this show is passionate about the sport. Nobody sought this rollout for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Nobody sought this rollout for a job per se, but most are passionate or became extremely passionate inside of it. And, there's definitely a level of ownership. And, I think I was actually thinking about that this morning, just in general of like, what is that common trait of all the people that I've spoken with? And that is, performing at a high level, because it is stressful. It's the pinnacle for a reason. But each and every person, yourself included, are really good at what they do, and not so much anything other than like you care so deeply about it that it just like oozes out of yourself. So I'm impressed.
It's
I'm
hard not to care when hundreds of thousands of people are showing up. But again, like that just gives me sense of purpose and importance and feeling like what I'm doing is meaningful. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're not excited to do this or excited to help or be here, then there's really not a space for that anymore, because there is so much that's going on.
Man, Allie, thank you so much for coming on here. I still feel like there's so much we can unpack in each of those topics, and the door is open.
Okay.
So if you or Matt or anybody wants to come on the show and unpack any detail, you're always welcome. And you are definitely media trained or just a great speaker. Uh,
Thank you.
I have had some awkward conversations with people that weren't totally prepared. But you speak well. It's not easy to speak into your laptop for an hour and remotely. And honestly, I'd love to have a studio, but everybody's calling me from all over the world, so I can't fly people in. And
I love the setup though. I love that you play the race behind you of whoever you're communicating with. I think that's really cool and great promo for us. So thank you.
yes. It started out as a sleepover thing for my kids. Would have friends come over for sleepovers, and one person would be on the main TV, which always existed, and then everybody else was like on their phones and not paying attention. And I was like, this is so like, I want my kids' friends to want to come here, but that's if any of their parents came over and saw like 4 kids like buried in their phones, that'd be weird. So I went to Best Buy, to the outlet store, and I found these other 2 TVs super cheap and worked really hard. We all geeked out, in the sales floor on how I get this to fit inside the room. And the kids love it. It's like the highlight of this. And my son has a racing sim, so he can like fold these TVs in and kind of get that surround sound or surround vision, I guess.
That's so cool.
But then the F1 TV app started this, like all this data and multi-streaming. It's maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago when they started that. And I came down here one day and I was like, I wonder if I can get all the information up here. Like I want to have that track wall experience.
Yeah.
And it worked. And then on Quora, I took a picture of it, and like I started getting flooded with private messages like, how did you do that? Oh my gosh. And then this became the backdrop of the show. It was like, this is how big of a geek I am when it comes to racing.
Love it. Love it. It looks great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but well, thank you for being on here. I really appreciate it. And you guys are seriously always welcome to be on the show. You have the best race that I've ever been to. And we will talk again next year, and I would imagine I'd say the same thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it.
Anytime you want to do it, shoot me a message. I can talk all day on marketing and really dig into the weeds. I would imagine at some point that would be a really good conversation to have. I could probably learn a lot from it. So
Yeah, for sure.
let's promote the next race. Let's
Next
let's get your
race.
team on and do something. That would be fun.
Yes, let's do it. MotoGP, I feel like it needs the spotlight. I feel like it deserves the spotlight. I think it's one of the coolest races that we have here, but we'll just have to come back and talk all through that one.
Let's do it. I got to educate myself. I just know I like watching it. I don't know anything about it or any of the structure or rules. So
Half the battle.
Allie, thank you. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.